fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Stateside Footy, the biggest little soccer podcast on the internet. I am, of course, your host, Steve Silver, and it is Sunday night, and I'm sure everybody's watching the NFL because, again, man, it is the MLS Offseason, and quite honestly, you know, Premier League only comes once a week, and obviously, if you guys are not, diehard Premier League guys, then it is what it is. I understand, man. This is just the long and short of being an American soccer fan, waiting for the American top flight to continue again. It just is what it is. Before we get into it, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming Stateside Footy content. All right, if you're wondering why the hell I'm wearing a beanie hat, and I know you're not wondering, but I am wearing a beanie hat because it's goddamn cold in my house. And even with the heater on, I don't know, man, these Midwestern winters, man, it's nothing like the Pacific Northwest. I'll just say that. And so you always seem to be bundled up. But anyway, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. Because we do have some news and notes before we get into it. And it looks like Orlando City, by the way, let's before I get into it, they have signed Brazilian winger Thiago from Esporte Clube Bahia in the Brazilian top flight, and it looks like the 20-year-old has signed a contract through the 27-28 MLS campaign with the option for the 28. He will on a U22 initiative roster spot. It looks like in 52 matches last year for Bahia, he scored 11 goals, 3 assists. And that's actually not bad considering he graduated from the Club's Academy, making his senior debut in 2023. And he joins an Orlando attack that's already really pretty goddamn good when you consider they have Martin Ojeda, Marco Pasalic, Luis Muriel, and Duncan McGuire. And it's unbelievable, the wealth of riches. And of course, last year they finished 9th in the East, 53 points before that. The year before they finished 5th or 6th. And it just seems that Orlando every single season just keeps getting better and better and better. But still, man, massive signing for Orlando. They seem to be doing it right, too, because when they actually start bringing in some of these South American talents, they do it young. They keep them around for a few years, and they're absolutely devastating, too. And so from that standpoint, that's actually going to be massive. And it feels like there is an arms race now in in the state of Florida when you consider the moves that Orlando is going to make. or have made, versus what's going on now in Miami. And of course, we will get to that in just 1 second. But we do have some stuff to talk about, and let's go ahead and get started right here with Antoine Griezmann. And it looks like Antoine Griezmann does have some interest in Major League Soccer. Most notably, Charlotte FC has made a concrete offer, along with two Saudi clubs, Al Ahly and Al Wada. The level of interest that Griezmann has in Charlotte specifically, not Major League Soccer, because we know that it's his dream to finish his career in Major League Soccer. The question is what is the interest in Charlotte FC? Now, obviously, last year Charlotte brought in Wilfried Zaha, and of course Zaha had what I consider a pretty good first campaign in Major League Soccer. And the way that Charlotte looks at this is that this is a marquee piece to their upcoming summer. Now, he is signed through the 2026-2027. Looks like Diego Simeone has essentially told him that he is not going to be a regular starter with Atleti. And so from that standpoint, even though that he's still under contract for one more year, the question is Antoine Griezmann going to speed things up and come stateside come 2026? This thing, by the way, this thing is not going to get done within the next month. That is not going to happen. For all those know, of course, the transfer window opens up in January, but it stays open all the way until April for the for Major League Soccer. So this is going to be a summertime move, if anything. But that being said, there also is to be known that Inter Miami also has a DP spot open as well. And from that standpoint, they also have to, they have some things to figure out as well too. But I will say that it is going to happen. I would probably bet my money's worth that Antoine Griezmann will be playing in Major League Soccer come the summer of 2026. The question is going to be where. Now, let me just check something really, really quick. I just want to and I apologize. Let's see. And it looks like as of late 2025, LAFC actually holds the discovery rights for him. It's he's ours. That is yet to be seen. So we'll see exactly how this one transpires, but I would probably assume that one way or another, come the summer of 2026. By the way, speaking of discovery rights, whoa, what happened there? What happened there? My computer. All right, here we go. And I apologize. There we go. So, by the way, speaking of discovery rights, Chicago holds the discovery rights for Robert Lewandowski. Now, the question is whether or not this is actually going to end up holding water. Now, the question is, whether they're going to be able to pull this one off, right? Because obviously Chicago has prioritized Lewandowski for the last 6 months. Obviously, Chicago's got a massive Polish community. And since let's see. So in order, okay, let's just start right here. Now, in order for another team to get him or to get the discovery rights, obviously they would have to pay general allocation money to Chicago in order to get this one. But that is not something that is going to happen because Chicago has made him 100% their number one target. And it looks like there has been talks for a potential summer of 2026 move as his contract will end this upcoming summer. Now, the question is whether or not that's going to happen. Maybe. That's a big one. Like, for sure, I can see Griezmann coming in 2026, but you would probably assume that I understand, the age of Lewandowski. He's like 36 something, somewhere around there. This would probably be the time to do it. But the issue that I have is the fact that if he's still scoring at a high level and there still is a want, if there still is a want for Lewandowski to chase down the biggest trophies in Europe, there's going to be interest. And so from an MLS perspective, they would actually have to pony up some serious cash to get him to come over. Now, granted, his contract ends, so essentially he's going to be on a free. But I don't know, man. A big part of me feels like Griezmann to MLS is probably more likely than Lewandowski. But I guess it just the priority of what Lewandowski's looking for. Again, Chicago has a massive Polish community. And that's exactly why he's their number one target, because they look at him as a benchmark star. I guess the question is like, how long is he going to stay? Because again, I think Lewandowski is 36. Let's find out real quick. Let's just find out. Yeah, he's 37. Right, he's 37 years old. Like I get it. I get the want. And I would probably assume that a guy like Lewandowski, still even at 37, is still going to deliver. But the question is for how long, right? So if you're going to pay him 10 a season, 10, 15 a season to come do it, how long are you going to have him, right? I don't know, man. Like if Lewandowski was like 34, where you might be able to have him for 3 years. 4 years tops, yeah, it probably makes a lot of sense, but I don't know, man. 37, yeah, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, there's that as well too. So good luck, Chicago. Although, listen, man, Chicago's been resurrected under Greg Berhalter, so I guess anything is possible, right? They're still on that Greg Berhalter victory lap. Let's move in to this gentleman right here, is Obed Vargas. Is going to Club America. And this is an interesting one if you're the Seattle Sounders, of course, my Seattle Sounders. And now understand that he's coming off his best season, and of course, there is going to be massive interest. And when you look at his international career, he is looking to break in to the Mexican starting 11 for the 2026 World Cup. And there's a lot of optimism to think that he could. And so we knew that there was going to be interest, not just from other Major League Soccer teams, but there was going to be interest outside of the United States. And the interesting thing about this is what is important for Obed Vargas, because clearly he can play in Europe. I don't think that is the question. Like, what is the next progression of Obed Vargas's career? Is it in Liga MX? Because obviously you have the top club in Mexico gunning for him. And is that something that piques his interest, or is this something where, he finds himself potentially scouting out different stops in Europe? I don't necessarily think he's ready for the bigger jumps in Europe. But that being said, it's like, a mid-table Bundesliga team, possibly even the Eredivisie, or does he think that Club America is probably better than that? Certainly, the Mexican top flight is going to pay him a shitload of money. And so from that standpoint, it will be worth his while. Or is that exactly what he's looking for, right? Just to play for obviously the Mexican League's top club, and being in an area where he knows for a fact that he will be playing essentially first team football for El Tri. If that's the case, it's going to make sense. It's also worth mentioning that he is entering his final season with Seattle and is not expected to renew. And so the question is this going to be something where Seattle is going to hold him for the 2026 season, or is this something where maybe something can be worked out in the next 30 to 45 days before the Classera? I believe it's the Classera starts there in Liga MX, and he can actually join ahead of it. And that's going to be interesting. The question for Seattle then is, okay, cool. How do you replace him? And of course, Seattle has already brought in Hassani Dotson, the 28-year-old from Minnesota United. And they also brought in who's the other guy they brought in? Not Leo Burney, but Ryan Saylor as well too. Although he's kind of a center back, but they lost Danny Leyva, and it looks Leyva went to Club Necaxa in Liga MX, and so from that standpoint, right now the only thing that they really have in that defensive midfield is Snyder Brunel and Christian Roldan. It looks like João Paulo is out the door as well too, although he was 34 years old. And so the question is how is Seattle going to replace that type of production? Naturally, you would think that potentially this might be an opportunity for the 18-year-old Snyder Brunel to step into those shoes. They still have Christian Roldan, although Roldan is more of a central midfielder playing a little bit higher up. And so I don't know, maybe this is an opportunity for a guy like Snyder Brunel, or this might be an opportunity for the Sounders to hit the open market to try to find, somebody that could step in and give some depth. So that is something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later in this show. Okay, so lastly, it is this guy right here, Tadeo Hollande, Inter Miami. And Inter Miami have started their conversations with Celta Vigo, making sure that Hollande's future remains with the Herons in Miami. The question is whether or not that final DP spot is going to be used to secure that future. Now, of course, at the end of the season, Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba retired, opening up 2 DP spots, but they had to use one to make sure that Rodrigo de Paul stays in Miami. And of course, they were able to make that deal permanently. And so that leaves Miami with 1 spot. And when you look at Hollande and you look at the production that Hollande was able to have this season. As a matter of fact, I think he was their leading scorer this year, all the way through GA, goals and assists. And of course, he was their leading playoff scorer as well, too. He signed with Celta Vigo in 2024 from Godoy Cruz in Argentina for $5 million, and they gave him a 4-year contract running through 2028. But it's not like Celta Vigo is against the idea. Now the question is because obviously he's on a 4-year, $5 million deal. Is that something that are they going to be able to potentially buy down with TAM? Is this going to be something where they're going use a DP in order to facilitate that deal? Also, it looks like Facundo Mora of Racing in Argentina has entered talks with River Plate, but he's also a target for Inter Miami. And so that's also something that also is a part of this conversation when it comes to Alonde. Now, as far as I'm concerned, when you actually have this, this situation where you have a young, prolific scorer, and of course they also have the other kid on the other side, Silvetti, and they did bring back Luis Suarez, who initially was reported of going back down to Uruguay to finish out his career. It looks like he will do it with Inter Miami, and so if you're the reigning MLS Cup champions and you have this kid, listen, I understand there's a potential want and need to go out and get a big name and bring him to Miami, but the reality is you also have to think about the long-term future. And the reality is, yes, they're going to have Messi for a few more seasons, fantastic, but the reality is you actually want that cornerstone player. And I got to be honest with you, I think today Hollande might just be that cornerstone player. And so from that standpoint, man, you really just don't want to mess around. And if it takes a DP to make sure that Hollande stays in Miami, then do it. Absolutely do it. Is it going to cost what it would take to, bring in a guy like Griezmann or bring in a guy like Lewandowski? No. But that being said, he's also going to be a guy who's obviously going to get better. And as long as he's paired up with Leo, this dude is an automatic goal. So why wouldn't you want to at least bank the next 4 years, 5 years on Hollande? Jeez, I don't know, man. Like if it were me, I would use a DP spot on Hollande. It just makes sense. I don't know how you guys feel about that. But as far as I'm concerned, those are some news and notes that are circling Major League Soccer. And of course, I want to start today by talking about Seattle. And of course, my Seattle Sounders last year finishing fourth in the Western Conference, actually maybe even fifth. Good question. All right. And the thing about it is, just out of curiosity, yeah, they finished fifth on 55 points. All right. Anyway, one of the things that I want to get into with Seattle is it is a different era in Seattle. Now, in their first 5 to 10 years, they were a very active team when it came to their DP structure. And especially when the league went from 1 to 3, they certainly were. They were willing to go out and spend, and it seemed like it was every single summer where that third DP was bought down by TAM, and they were able to go out there and bring in another player to help this team win. And of course, it culminated in MLS Cup MLS Cup victories. They went to like 4 and 5 years, winning 2 of them, and they ended up winning the CONCACAF Champions League in 2022. But the problem with the Sounders is that they're kind of old, and this seemed to highlight a little bit for me when they brought back Stephen Fry, who's 39. And especially considering they have a young guy, they have a 27-year-old by the name of Andrew Thomas, who last year, Andrew was the starter during Leagues Cup, and he actually ended up being goalkeeper of the tournament, something like that. And the reality was that it felt like that was kind of passing the baton, even though that Stephen Fry went on to finish out the rest of the season, and of course in the playoffs. The average age for that goalkeeper group is 28.6. So Stephen Fry is 39, Thomas is 27, and Jacob Castro is 26. They did just bring in Max Anchor, who was a member of the University of Washington. I think he is a Vancouver Whitecaps homegrown, but the reality is it was time for Seattle to, to shake things up a little bit. And I said this back after the 2022 season when they chased the CONCACAF Champions League title and missed out. It was an opportunity for them to somewhat reshuffle the deck. And it was only this year that they finally let João Paulo walk. He was 34. They let him run out his contract. Last year, it was Raul Ruidiaz. But when I think about this team, Danny Musovski is 30. Jordan Morris is 31. Areola is 30. Ryan Kent obviously walked. He was 29. Rothrock, they're bringing back. He's 26, 27. Rusnik is 31. Roldan is 30. Hassani Dotson, who they just brought in, is 28. Alex Roldan is 29. They actually have some options that I don't know, man. The way that I look at this is like it should be an opportunity to somewhat reshuffle the deck with the Seattle Sounders because, listen, is this team close to winning MLS Cup? Well, you might say yes, because obviously they just won a trophy last year, and it felt like that might have been like the last hurrah. Because when you think about the Sounders, Jordan Morris can't stay healthy. You have no idea what you're going to get from Jesus Ferreira. You have no idea what you're going to get from Paul Areola. Pedro de la Vega somewhat continues to get hurt. And, I don't know, like some people are still mixed about that DP signing. Rothrock, to me, is not an everyday starter. Rusnik is 31, and he's starting to show signs of wear and tear. Roldan is 30, even though he's kind of a dude that's just always around. But eventually, it just feels like this is an opportunity to potentially make some hard decisions. Like when you look at things that have progressed, clearly the Sounders are in a position where I wouldn't say they're necessarily investing in the first team as much as they used to. When you look at what is going on, and especially since COVID, the Sounders have been investing in outside football. They're trying to tap into outside football revenue streams that allegedly will help them bridge the gap to the first team. What do I mean by that? It's, it seemed like prior to COVID, they were very resilient on football revenues only. And when COVID hit, man, they took a massive hit. And I think it was at that point where they realized they actually have to secure some, different streams of revenue in order for them to bridge a gap such as something like a global pandemic. I don't necessarily think we'll see another one, but I don't know, man. But there's also the conversations about the new stadium that they're looking to build as well, too. And that's going to be on that Longacre site where they have their new training complex. And so the question is it time to reshuffle the decks, or is this going to be something where they're just going to hold on to guys like Jordan? Are they going to hold on to guys like Christian Roldan and Albert Rusnik and just ride until the wheels fall off, so they can bridge the gap until they get this, to get the shovels in the ground? Let's see. Just out of curiosity. So this was in. All right. So this was in October of this year. And it looks like they're still looking for capital investment so they can build this new. Yeah. So they can build this new stadium. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So that is something that is going on. with the Sounders. So they're looking to leave Lumen Field, and they're looking to put themselves in a new soccer-specific stadium, like a 28,000 seat soccer-specific stadium down at that Long Acres. And so, that is my biggest worry about this is the fact that each year they're continuing to run out the same cast of characters. And when they replace, they're not replacing younger, they're replacing again, like this offseason, they came out and essentially said, we're not going to be shopping for a DP. That is not in the plans of 2026, and they're just plugging the gaps. And from that standpoint, they've already done that. And I think that's going to be the plan, to stay competitive, to sell tickets. And, you never know that maybe this team might do what they did last year, which is, win a trophy. And I guess that's a good plan considering they did come off the Leagues Cup trophy. They will be in the CONCACAF Champions Cup this season. But again, if you're a Sounder fan like me and you saw what this team was from 2024 to 2025, I don't know, man. I just look at it and think that it's time. You look at what other teams have done around the league and you see the direction in which some of the better teams are going. Yes, there are exceptions to the rules. But you look at the way that Orlando's building, and they're getting creative with young South American talent, and you see what the Sounders are doing, and you're just kind of like, damn. It's like these teams aren't spending shitloads of money on some of these young players. As a matter of fact, they're just being crafty. And you look at what the Sounders are doing, and it's like clearly they need to upgrade on the defensive side of the ball. One of the things that I liked about the Sounders a year and a half ago was the fact that they actually had a very good defensive unit. They didn't necessarily leak goals. They didn't ship goals. And then from 2024 to 2025, with essentially the same crew, all of a sudden they started leaking goals at an alarming rate. And it was actually quite telling. As Brian Schmetzer was using his backs more like wing backs, and you saw that potentially there might have been an issue tracking back the goals and the crosses they conceded from wide areas, and then you also look at the goals that were kind of leaked centrally a little bit with Jackson Reagan and Yaimar. It's like, me personally, I don't want to see them break up that center back pair. I think it's probably one of the best. But could they upgrade on Alex Roldan? Me personally, I think it's time for Kosa Rienzi to get some run. And yeah, maybe it might be time to move off of Nuhu. I'm not a big fan of Reed Baker Whiting, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like clearly there could be options out there to upgrade. Clearly, they need to start looking at potential replacements for Obed Vargas, and maybe a new strike as well too, because I am a little bit worried about Jordan Morris, and I'm curious about Danny Muzowski as well too. So we'll see how that goes. But that being said, one thing about Brian Schmetzer is his teams are organized, and they don't get beat cheap. That's what I'll say. So from that standpoint, they're going to be drilled. They're going to be disciplined. But that being said, it's like another year goes by where they don't necessarily address their needs, and one has to wonder when it's going to fall apart. Like when has the tread completely wore off when it comes to the Sounders? Lastly, before we go, we have to talk about the reigning the remaining Western Conference champions, the Vancouver Whitecaps. The interesting thing about the Whitecaps is they just put together not only their best season in club history, but one of the best seasons in the league history, as they became the first MLS team to make the final in 3 separate tournaments while coming within 3 points of the Supporters' Shield. I guess you can say, in other words, they were in hunt for 4 separate trophies. And they did that while playing beautiful soccer and developing players. And they were able to get the peak of their respective abilities, right? The interesting thing about what's next for Vancouver as sporting director Alex Schuster's offseason is to figure out how to get more quality into their 11. How are you going to push a little bit more in some of those bigger games? And does that mean they're going to bring in another Thomas Muller type signing? Maybe. Because obviously, that Schuster isn't hesitant to make moves within the league. But for me, the bigger questions is, what does the future hold for Andreas Kubas, their DPD mid? There is legitimate interest from the biggest and richest clubs in South America. And so if something comes in, an offer comes in for him, what does Vancouver do, right? Like, what is how do you weigh that? Clearly, they absolutely want to run it back. In the CONCACAF Champions Cup, they want to run it back in the league, and Kubas is one of the biggest reasons why they got there. Albeit the mistake that he made against Messi in the final notwithstanding, he still is one of the biggest players in the league. He's one of the best D mids in the league, and so that's a legit question, right? So if one of the biggest clubs in Argentina and Brazil come calling, and they actually make a legit offer that's somewhere in that $10 million range, what do you do? Do you sell? Great question. Great question. The other thing that has to be asked is Sebastian Berhalter, right? If Europe comes calling, do you let him go chase his dream? Because that is something that he has expressed. He wants to play in Europe at some point in their careers. And by the way, he's not under contract past 2026. So from that standpoint, that's the thing. It's like, is it going to happen at some point in 2026? Does it happen now, or does it happen in the summer? Regardless, that is something that he's going to push for. Same thing with Ali Ahmed, right? The Canadian international, their young left winger, who was absolutely brilliant throughout the second half of the MLS season. Both have expressed their desire to play in Europe. And the question is, right, is Vancouver, or more importantly, is Major League Soccer going to stand in their way of, expanding their careers? The other thing is, will other MLS teams rate their cover? Because they have guys who other teams want. Matias Laborda, who can play across the entire back four. And I think they already got rid of Jaden Nelson to Austin FC, and they also have CJ Nangano. They did re-sign their keeper, which, by the way, he's one of the best on-the-ball keepers in the league. But again, that is something that is those are my 3 things that I'm kind of curious about. And of course, it's a lot to juggle. But that being said, these are what I like to call first world problems, though, right? Because they actually have a wealth of talent in Vancouver. There should be no reason why Vancouver can't run it back in the Western Conference. They're in a much better position. If you ask me, they're in a much better position in the Western Conference than a team like Seattle or a team like the LA Galaxy or LAFC. They, that cabinet is absolutely full, where they can actually let go of a Jaden Nelson to Austin, and it's not necessarily going to hurt them. But that being said, it's like, what is going to be that next move for Vancouver to put them over the top, because they are very, very close. You don't get to, you don't get to essentially 4 finals by being a shitty team. So from that standpoint, it's going to be interesting to see. And from my standpoint, they are probably the best team in the West right now. It just is what it is. And there's still going to be a lot more to happen between now and then towards the end of the window. So there's going to be a lot to talk about. When we come back, for part 2, I am going to try to have Jeff Lageson of Prost International on as we get into it a little bit more deeper, because we're going to talk about maybe the New York teams and also the Ohio teams as well as more Western Conference teams as we get into it. So from that standpoint, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And hopefully you guys have had a great weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow for USM&T Yanks Abroad. Take care, guys. Good night.
Rusted goalposts under